Thanks all for joining. It would be fantastic to know just a little bit about your experience with Speedlancer, how long you've been using us, what you use us for, what your company is, how you found us, basically all that general cool stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I found Speedlancer, I think, through you as the founder when I realized that there was a real difference between having, curated freelancers who knew what was going on and the value of time versus trying to find freelancers from other platforms. And so I gave Speedlancer a go, which I think was about 18 months or 2 years ago, and started to use tasks on a sort of as needs basis. So there were things like helping with copy for blog posts, right through to podcast editing, right through to some PR work and some graphic design. And then I moved on to a paid plan, which was sort of a recurring concierge service, which I could just reach out via Slack to the concierge, tell me match against people that I needed to get help with. And that was really useful. I am a serial founder, and part of the work I do on the side of building my company, Drop Bio, is creating content to help other entrepreneurs learn faster and run faster. And some of that I really enjoy doing. So a lot of the content development work around blog writing or podcasting, I really enjoy that. But when it comes to doing all the other things that come with publishing it, I'm good at it, but I prefer someone else to do it so I can focus on other stuff. And so I reached out to Speedlancer to help me do a lot of that kind of work.
Awesome, cool. And what other solutions were you considering? Like, what made Speedlancer your choice?
So Speedlancer was my choice because I tried using Upwork and freelancer.com, and I found that I still really struggled to determine who was a great freelancer and who wasn't. And so ultimately it came down to, you'll have to try and see how these folks go. And it was hit and miss. I mean, I had some absolutely sensational freelancers work with me, and I had some real awful experiences too. But when Speedlancer came to pass, it was just consistently good, and it became quite a reliable service to work with. And I think the way that a number of the experiences were created, so there was bundling of different aspects, as you know, it just allowed for the production of a particular thing to move more smoothly, as opposed to having to find, one freelancer for this, another one for that. Having those bundles together, I found to be pretty useful. And also the fact that they each knew that there was, a timing aspect to this. So the sooner, often it was my fault for not getting the job done quickly enough because I was the point of review, as opposed to how quickly it was that the Speedlancer could turn things around. And so I think the key thing that I learned through the process was, if you do a really good job of briefing them in and helping them understand what you're actually looking for, then you can develop a really quick relationship. The turnaround time is really good, and then you get what you need and you can move on, and then you can come back to either the same freelancer or other ones when you have other stuff you need done.
That's fantastic. And what's an example of a workflow or a bundle, as you mentioned, that you used Speedlancer for? And do you remember what the tasks were broadly within it?
Yeah, so one of the ones which I think was the most bundled one was the PR bundle. So there was a PR bundle which essentially said, we're going to help you find the writer to help you sort of tell your personal brand story, and then create that into a document which could be essentially your press kit. And so there was a number of tasks inside that. From memory, a journalist to sort of extract what the story was and to craft that into words that make sense. Graphic designers to make it look good and sort of to find the right imagery and the right tone to express what I want to see in my personal brand. There was an option for photography, but we didn't use that piece, but we did end up using the graphic designers to sort of take existing imagery of me to make it look and fit. And so really it was the concierge who was curating all of this in the background. What I saw was interactions with a bunch of different Speedlancers who seemed to know what each step in the process was. And then the byproduct of that was a press kit that I could put on my site, which just saved me time trying to either do it myself, or the expense of going to a PR company for them to do that for me. So I found that to be pretty useful. And I've also sort of played with the idea of using the podcast editing suite that is there as well. Haven't done that yet, but there's potential for that.
Okay, awesome. And last question, I suppose. what types of companies would you recommend Speedlancer to?
I think I would recommend Speedlancer to just about any company that feels as though they can do it themselves. And by that, I mean do everything by themselves. So, our game of building momentum is all about timing and all about how you can deploy capital to get the best return. And, you might think you can learn stuff, or hire people, but the workplace has changed, and where you can reach out to people who are really good at what they do for really discrete tasks to plug into your existing workflow. I take that any day over anything else. And I think every company through COVID in particular is learning that. I think Speedlancer is a safe way to experiment with that approach. And I think they'll find they really like it. So I highly recommend it.
That's great. Anything else you'd like to add or share?
Look, no, I think the thing that's impressed me is the way in which you guys have tried to bring together the tools that we use natively. So having the Slack integration with Saqib has been really great. He's super responsive. I don't know if he sleeps very much. I worry about that. The ability for feedback to be received between the freelancers when jobs aren't going exactly how it is and how it goes to plan, I think has gone really well. I think when it comes to some of like the PR, the press kit example worked okay, but then there were some hiccups where the freelancers weren't quite sure who the next freelancer was, and it required Saqib to sort of be there to knit it all together, which is obviously his job. But when it comes to making that scalable, I think I don't know how it sort of fits together in the background, but if there were freelancers that could do and know how to catch the ball between each of the tasks a bit more efficiently, I think that would make for a better user experience on the customer side. And then, look, I think just tactically inside Slack, there was a couple of occasions where I didn't see the notifications from the freelancers when the work was delivered. So, and I think that's a Slack integration, right? When you sort of do one of those native ones, sometimes it doesn't alert you into the channel that something there is new. And so even when you log into Slack, you don't see that the channel is highlighted. And so, I haven't got a note from Saqib going, "Oh, did you see that came through?" And I thought, "Oh shit, no, I haven't." And that was days after when I sort of expected. I just got busy, so I didn't go back to go and check it. So there's a couple of tactical workflow sort of things that I'm sure could be improved, but that's just technology. So
exactly, we're aiming to automate a bunch of those little functions, including like following up with the clients, like we follow up with our freelancers, and also supporting handovers a little bit more smoothly between the freelancers, as you mentioned. But yeah, there's a couple of things like when we're dealing with a complex system of so many different people. It is a challenge, but I'm glad overall you've had a positive experience, and
it's been a real learning one too. So I've liked being at this stage of the journey and sort of seeing where you guys are taking this to. Would love to see a referral program in place, so that I can sort of put a link in and that sort of carry through to other people who are going to use Speedlancer. And I also like that there's an expense line to this, which is not, it's not cheap, it's not super expensive, but I think it's priced about right for the premium quality of it, because you can go down rabbit holes in Fiverr and stuff like that where it just becomes a joke, because you're hoping it's going to be a lot cheaper than what you think. And by the time you find the right person, the expense line sort of comes up to level. It's sort of, man, I just wasted a bunch of time still paying more than what I thought I was going to get, right? So I know you know that, but I would like to be able to put more people into that in a smoother kind of way. So if there's an off-the-shelf SAM card or something like that you can do for the referrals, I'd love to see that come into the product at some point soon.